Well, what do we have here? These things with a big leaf. It's a snake bark maple. And what happens is after the dormant season, it comes out with new shoots. And a lot of times we'll end up with these humongous ones. Well, the plants, just like humans and animals, when you take a nap, you feel better, right? Well, this is deciduous, so they've been sort of sleeping through the winter. And then now that it's starting to warm up, it comes out very vigorously. Well, it kind of ruins the shape of the bonsai. Well, not so much the shape, but the proportion, right? So we want these to get smaller. And there's a number of different ways to do it. I thought I'd show you one of the techniques, because this one is really apparent that you really don't want something like this big to be part of the bonsai, because it ruins the proportion, right? Anyway, so this is Hiro saying, let's get started. This is the snake bark maple. I think the reason for it, it has these lines in here. So what we do is actually just cut off these big ones. And if you do this a number of times, it'll end up smaller. So I think we've looked at Japanese maples and trident maples and things like that. Basically the same sort of technique. If you keep taking the big ones off, you end up with smaller. Well, what will happen is it'll come back in that same spot. Well, so not much to it, right? Just cut off these big ones. Isn't it really exciting? Well, you know, I've been reducing my inventory, but I still have close to 2,000 trees, right? And, well, about half of it is deciduous. So there'll be a bunch of them that have done the same thing. See, now the smaller ones in here. So I just keep trimming away. So there's different techniques to reduce the size of the leaves. But for this time of the year, this is first time after coming out of dormancy. I think this is probably the best technique. Yeah, we've had some wild swings in temperature. One day it's cold, like in the low 60s, almost high 50s. And then today it's going to be in the mid 80s. In some parts of this Northern California, it's going to be closer to 90. I think we're not going to get that hot, but it's not good for plants, nor good for humans. We need it to go up and down slowly. But you got to deal with what you have. So, see, everything is starting to get smaller. So once you get to that point, you see all these that shot up? Let's go ahead and reduce those so that it'll stay tight and compact. So can you see this one here? I'm going to take that off. And you notice that I've been cutting these when leaving a stub. There's a button here that should pop. So snake bark maple is not a real common one. I have it because, well, I have a lot of different friends from different industries. Well, Bob, my buddy that used to work at a retail nursery, well, he was managing it at the time. So what happened was the salespeople that come by, they always have something new. And he loved plants, and he knew I loved plants. So he said, oh, he bought two, and he kept one for himself and one for me. So anyway, that's how I ended up with the snake bark maple. And it's interesting because of the trunk, but it was more difficult because the size of the leaves. But see, if you keep doing that, you'll shrink down. So before summer, this will be pruned about 3 times or 4 times. More times you prune, the better. So anyway, you could start to see what's happening, right? So I'll grab another one off the table. Okay, here's another one, a little bit younger. Well, the other thing you want in a good bonsai is make sure it is still healthy, but slightly root bound. If you constantly repot, then it gets more vigorous, and the leaves will be bigger. So this one here is not as bad as the other one in terms of size. Well, to get a sense of proportion, the first one, right, this was the big one. So yeah, it's a little bit smaller to start with, but same procedure. We're going to take the biggest one off first. Really exciting, isn't it? Just think, I have to do these for hundreds of them. Well, this one looks very healthy. Same procedure. Let's cut off the big ones. I know, there's something that's eating, and I don't know exactly what that is. Generally, these are relatively pest-free. I don't remember ever having to treat it for anything. In terms of age, I think the first one was the oldest. And probably that's, 35, maybe even getting closer to 40. I think it's something in that neighborhood. Well, what happened was I got busy. And well, originally I wasn't thinking of making these into bonsai. I only had the one plant, so I planted it in the ground. And it got humongous. But one year it set seeds. So I took the seeds, and I had enough trees or seeds, so I made them into plants, and now all I had to do is remember when that was. And I think it's about 30 some odd years ago that happened. Well, Bob, he decided that he wanted to be a school teacher, so he became a school teacher, and he now retired, so it has to have been a while ago. You know, that's kind of in terms of history and age, you have to kind of go with some reference point. My black pines, the first set that I got, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and our son was born there, and we decided that, that's not a great place to raise a family, so we moved back here, and then did the family split. Well, my parents gave me this 10 acres, so, and anyway, And I was thinking, oh, that was 30 years ago. No, it isn't. He's 45. So that makes the tree about 2 years older than that, because I bought some trees at the same time, and then I brought back a truckload. So if my son is 45, those trees are 47. So. Get this top thinned out. So basically, I'm just removing the big leaves. And usually, it'll come right back with smaller leaf in the same spot. Okay, so what I'm doing, just in case you can't see, when you have a thing like that, I've been cutting like this. If you pluck this off, you'll damage the bud that's in there. So what I'm doing is cutting it off and rely on this bud to come back. I think I told you in the past that I read all your comments. I don't reply individually because they'll start a whole chain reaction and I'll be doing nothing but answering them. But I remember the questions and then try to answer in the future chapters. Well, you know, I was doing some of that sketch and trying to explain what some of our concept that we have in bonsai, and I guess that seems to be working out okay. I'll continue to make more. You know, one time, and I still may do it, after a while you could tell how each plant will react in the future, right? So I was thinking that I can do a drawing and do enough sequence how it's supposed to develop and make it into a flip book. Well, I've had this idea, but it requires a lot of effort, so I haven't got around to it yet. But yeah, you should be able to look at a plant and predict what it should look like in the future. You gotta be flexible enough to make changes because nature will always throw out obstacles or give you a different look that would be more suitable. But a lot of times you could really predict. It's a lot more consistent to predict what a plant will do than people, that's for sure. Okay, so now this is looking like it's well opened up, and then all we're going to be doing is to fine tune it and get everything to get more proportional. So these are the snake bark maple, all these lines here, that's the reason they call this the snake bark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish pulling all the weeds. Now that I could actually see, I'll pull the weeds, fertilize, put it back. And then probably another month or so, I'll have to do this again. Okay, so anyway, this has been 3 of the snake bark maples. And I'll see you again real soon in another chapter. And keep those comments coming. And if you could remember, tell me where you're from, because it's really interesting to see who's watching from where. Okay, thank you so much. Good.